Hi guys, welcome back to today's Pulse Social podcast. My name's Ed, I'm a trainee sports journalist here at Pulse Social, and today I was lucky enough to be joined by Joe Hawkins for the podcast. Joe works as a community coordinator for the charity Access Sport, which aims to reduce the barriers young people have when getting involved in sport. In this podcast, we discuss Joe's passion for sport and making a change, the work done by Access Sport, and focus on some of the barriers for individuals with disabilities. Hope you enjoy. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Ed, you all right?
I'm good, thanks, mate. You can hear me all right?
Yeah, sorry, I was a couple of minutes late. I was just getting the passcode and all that.
All good, all good. I've got a bit of an upwards camera angle today because I'm kind of packing for camping. So it's a bit of a bomb site in my bedroom. So
Nice. Where are you camping?
I'm just going to Scotland to the Isle of Arran with a bunch of mates. So
Nice.
I figured I'd get away with them. How's your weekend been?
Good, thanks.
Good
Went to
stuff.
see Barbie, obviously.
Did you? Did you
Yeah.
do the Barbie and Oppenheimer thing?
I was going to. I just thought it'd be like 5 hours indoors on a weekend. A bit long. So we're going to do Oppenheimer in a couple of weeks.
Oh, fair enough.
What about you?
No, I am gonna go, I think, to Barbie at the weekend. I want to see Oppenheimer, but my girlfriend's pushing Barbie a bit more.
Yeah, I was the same. To be fair, I was convinced in the end. It was funny. But
Is it good?
I was pushing for Oppenheimer, but my head was turned.
Really? Okay, well, I'll see how I get on then.
It was funny.
Right. I'll jump into the questions that I've got for you, Joe, because I don't want to take too much of your time. But obviously, you sent me some stuff over about yourself or whatever, and Marlon put us in contact. And I think I couldn't have had someone much more experienced in disability and sport come on to interview.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm only 24, to be fair. So,
well, yeah, your CV is very impressive. So I was just like, oh, well, at least for me anyway. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. But yeah, I figured I'd start by asking you a little bit about your personal history in sports participation. Do you want to just introduce yourself and tell maybe any listeners about what it is that you do at the moment?
So my name's Joe. I'm a community coordinator at Access Sport. So Access Sport are a national sports inclusion charity. And it's our role and aim to make sure that no one's excluded from sport. So whether that's excluded by your gender, your disability, ethnicity, we want to make sure that everyone's got those equal opportunities to participate in sport, because we all know the important benefits of sport and being included. We do that by training, equipping, and supporting community clubs and organisations to provide inclusive activities. And I'm on our Changing Places program. So Changing Places is a multi-sport location specific offer. I'm on our London team. So we support clubs in London to run inclusive provision for disabled young people and their families. My role as community coordinator is to facilitate that, basically, connect with clubs, find the gaps where there's a lack of provision, what sports aren't happening, where aren't they happening, we work closely with those clubs, and our aim is to make sure that they're meaningful sessions for the young people and also they're sustainable. So beyond our funding and our intensive support, that they're sustainable in the long term, embedded in the community. So that's us.
Yeah, no, that's great. We'll touch a bit more onto the work done by Access Sport and yourself. But just sticking on the benefits, which you mentioned briefly there, of being involved in sports. Have you always been involved in sports, like playing yourself? Is there any particular sports that you're currently doing?
Well, I've always loved sport. I can't say I excel at many sports. I'm kind of an average Joe, literally. But yeah, when I was younger, I played for my local football team, as most kids do. Then played a bit of squash at a local club, which was good, and I picked that back up at uni. Just playing with a mate. We were kind of both equal level of not very good, but it was good because it meant that every time we played each other, it was a bit of competition. We didn't know who was going to win, so that was really good. At college and uni as well, I played quite a lot of futsal. So don't know if you know futsal at all, but it's quite
I think my uni plays it quite a bit.
Oh yeah. Oh nice. Yeah. If you've not been involved, I'd encourage you if you're into football, because find with 11 aside, it's quite hard to get on the ball. You don't touch it much. Whereas futsal, you're constantly touching the ball. It's very intense. Like you have to sub off all the time. But if you make a mistake, you can make up for it in like 5 seconds time. So yeah, that was really good. Like did that alongside studies at Bristol City at college. So that was really cool. What else? I really enjoy swimming as well. It's quite expensive to kind of book swims. I don't get to do that too much, but yeah, it's probably the sport I'm potentially best at. Probably the only sport I'm actually pretty good at, swimming, I'd say. But yeah, like I say, I've always loved sport, and everyone's always said to me like, do what you enjoy. So I guess that's kind of how I've ended up in sport as a career.
Yeah, I think I'm similar boat to you. I was always kind of getting involved in a lot of sports, maybe more 100% effort, 0% talent kind of idea. And I also relate to the fact that you said in 11-a-side football, I found myself not being touching the ball very much, playing at a centre back I was. So maybe I'll have to give futsal a little bit of a go at university. But
Yeah.
during the periods that you were, or you still are now, obviously taking part in sports, what did you find the most beneficial for you? You know, what was the biggest benefit that you got out of that?
I definitely see the benefits like physically, but mainly mentally. Like doing regular exercise gives you weirdly spending energy, gives you more energy, and it massively increases that energy and motivation, and then that leads to so many other benefits, like in your work life, your social life, relationships, overall confidence increases, I think. Also challenging yourself to become better, fitter, stronger, whatever your goal is. It doesn't matter what your goal is. You don't have to get stronger or fitter. Just participating is enough. But yeah, I think sport is such a stress reliever as well. Like, if you've had a stressful day at college, uni, or work, and then you go for a kickabout or you go for a swim or a run, kind of, for me, it just like, I'm not thinking about anything else apart from just having fun and
It
participating.
helps you forget about it, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And everyone's got stuff going on in their lives, so having stress relief is so important. Yeah, I'd say mentally for me would be my main focus when participating, and I guess socially as well. Yeah.
And like you and I now, well, just going off what you've said, I know for myself as well, it shows that you don't necessarily have to be the best at every sport that you do to reap the benefits of it either, which is the most important thing. Just
yeah,
anyone
exactly.
getting
I think obviously we love elite sport, but I don't think for me just participating and just getting involved is what it's all about. Elite sport's great, but yeah, it's the participation side that interests me the most. Yeah.
So before we jumped on this Zoom call, you said to me that you're more of a football fan than a player. I know you said you play a bit of futsal and stuff, but that's just because you said you didn't really get on with the lad culture associated around football. And then you said you discovered a group called Terrible Football and that's helped you. Can you elaborate a little bit on what Terrible Football is and how that helped you?
Yeah. So 11-a-side, I suppose it wasn't so much like lad culture. There wasn't like it wasn't like too many idiots and stuff playing that I played with. Mostly nice guys, but I just found like especially at uni, there was like loads of pressure and people take it way too seriously. So if you make a mistake or give the ball away, misplace a pass, just don't like the negative reactions and feeling that pressure and stuff. So yeah, I kind of fell out of love with 11-a-side football for a bit, but whereas Terrible Football, I just found on an app called Meetup, and I think it's like a global thing. But I live in Clapham, and they have a group in Clapham, and I work at our office is at Bethnal Green, and there's a group there as well, so perfect for me. And yeah, it's just completely different. It's free. It's open to all levels and genders. So yeah, there's no one excluded, which is kind of similar to, I guess, Access Sports ethos as well, which is great. I've only been a few times so far. I only discovered it a couple of months ago, but it's exactly what I was looking for. It's that they've just created such a positive environment. Like if you do make a mistake, no one cares. It's just about having fun and meeting new people. Yeah, so it's perfect. So I'll definitely be trying to go to that over the summer whilst it's on. And it's free as well, which is perfect. So yeah, it's up to the people that organise that.
I think it's a big barrier, isn't it, for people at the moment? Maybe not just the moment, but in the past as well. It's just feeling that you're potentially not or you're just going to upset everyone else by being there because you don't think you're of the ability. So these kind of initiatives are great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
You also mentioned to me before that you do park runs as well at the weekend. Some obviously a massive company, but some people may not know what a park run is. Do you want to explain a little bit about what that is and how it works?
Yeah. Again, I've only kind of got into that this year. Probably done 4 or 5 now, but it's brilliant. Again, it's free, which means it's so accessible for everyone. And it's a 5K, and they do it all over the world. If anywhere as well. Like even I come from Somerset originally, and even in a little village in Somerset, they have a park run. So wherever you are, you've probably got one local to you in your local park and stuff. And yeah, you just get everyone there. People walking their dogs and running with their dogs, but you got people pushing their kids on their push chairs and stuff. All ages. And yeah, it's just a great way of getting people together and running together. It's just something about a group of people doing that together. Saturday morning as well gets you up for the weekend.
Yeah.
And again, it's free. So
And again, that inclusive environment, right?
Yeah.
Nice, everyone doing different things.
Sometimes I don't run too often, but I quite like going out on my own, listening to music or a podcast. But with a group of people, it's that sense of community and stuff you just wouldn't. There's not many ways anymore to connect to people like that. So yeah, it's brilliant.
Right. Well, get on to a bit more about your career now then, and a bit more eventually on to what Access Sports doing. What motivated you first of all to study and build your career within sports? I know you said you got a passion in sports, but was there any other motive behind that?
To be fair, probably the short answer is probably no, apart from my
No.
passion.
Yeah.
Well, I think I wanted to have a positive impact on the world and society and on people in whatever I went on to do. And I was always passionate for like women's football. Women's football's blown up in the last couple of years thanks to the Lionesses and stuff.
Did you watch the game the other day?
I was working with Access Sport at an event actually. Yeah, it's good to kick off the World Cup with a win, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think we'll all be watching the game that's next Tuesday in the office together, which is fun. Yeah, so hopefully they can bring it home again. But yeah, I saw my friend play football for Bristol City Women, so I went down to her games quite a bit, and I think that kind of sparked my passion for inclusivity in sport, because 5, 6, 7 years ago, women's football was not what it was now, and in 10 years before that, it really wasn't what it was. So I think that sparked it. But to answer your original question about what got me into it, I'd say it was just mainly my passion. Like I said, I've always loved sport, and everyone's always said to me, just do what you enjoy. So
important.
Kind of ended up how I ended up in sport. So even from my teachers telling you how to pick your GCSEs, my PE teacher would say, pick what you enjoy. And my dad's, well, he was in a well-paid job, but he hated it a lot of the time. So watching him not enjoying what he did every day, I really emphasised that point. Working in sport, although it may not pay well a lot of the time, you spend too much of your life working not to enjoy what you do. And yeah, working at a sports charity like Access Sport gives you that life satisfaction that you're having a genuine positive impact on people's lives, and a positive impact on society. You go to like an inclusive judo session, for example, that we supported, and seeing the smiles on the young people's faces and our families, especially for people that don't get those opportunities to participate as often as most people. Yeah, it really brings your work to life. And disabled people especially face exclusion in their everyday life, and so many barriers to participation in sports. So charities like Access Sport are so important to help provide those opportunities. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be a part of, and yeah, follow my passion in sport, which is definitely what led me to my career in this. Yeah.
And I think you're 100% right. I think I read somewhere it's 60-70% of your life is spent working or whatever. I think 60% of you may as well do it in something that you're passionate about. And I think sports is the right way to go about it for you, clearly.
That'd be my number one advice for anyone picking subjects or picking a career. Just what do you enjoy, and go for that. Because like you say, you spend too much of your life working to not enjoy it. Yeah.
So important. You mentioned a bit about Bristol City there. You volunteered at the Bristol City Robins Foundation. Can you just explain a little bit about what the Bristol City Robins Foundation do, what role you had there?
Yeah, so I went to college at Bristol City Robins Foundation. When I was there, it was called Bristol City Community Trust, and I loved it there. I'm a Bristol City fan myself, so, unfortunately, at
I was going
times.
to say, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing all right. We're standard mid-table in the championship. That's that. We think we found our place. We don't go up or down anymore. Yeah, so I found this course that they were doing. Bristol City Robins Foundation it's like the charity arm of Bristol City Football Club. Pretty much every football club has like a community trust or a foundation now. I think Bristol City were one of the first ones to do it, and they've got one of them, and because of that, they've got one of the most like established education and departments and courses now. So I did the BTEC Level 3 Extended Diploma in Sport, I think it's called, at the Robins Foundation, and as part of that, there was so many like volunteer opportunities. They really encourage volunteering, because I think it's just been so important for me, and it is for so many people as well. So at like the half-term holiday camps, they would do. I volunteered as a mentor and an assistant coach. So I wasn't the main coach, but I was kind of just there to assist, and which was nice because I didn't have to prepare all the activities and stuff, and because I was just the assistant coach and the mentor, the kids loved it and stuff there. So you're really popular as a mentor,
Yeah.
yeah, which was good fun. And some of the players used to come down as well during the holiday sessions as well, so that was pretty cool. And then at Bristol City Women's Football Club, I did a lot of volunteering, all sorts, like they don't get the funding as the men do, so they just need as many people chipping in and in anything and everything. So I like help provide pre-match activities for the young fans. I was the mascot, the Vixen mascot once, which was funny.
Yeah.
Helping out at the ticket office, merchandise, stadium and all sorts and stuff. So that was really good. Yeah. Kind of following my passion for women's football as well. And yeah, I'd absolutely encourage anyone that's interested in getting involved in sport to volunteer early on.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think I'd be where I am today in the job that I love at Access Sport without those hours that I put in volunteering. Absolutely.
No, and we had a podcast, or I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with the founder of the Solihull Moors Foundation. And I know we were talking a lot about the good work done by football clubs, but particularly in the lower divisions, not to slate Bristol City too much because they are in the second division. So I'm a Villa fan, so I've experienced the lows as well, but particularly with Solihull Moors, and I know you said in women's sport as well, there is a lot of funding issues. And, you know, volunteering is not only a good way for you to build up your own credentials and your own experience, but also just to give back, you know, to a club that you support. You clearly love Bristol City, and I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You then went into sport ed originally, did you? Or were you at Access Sport and then sport ed?
Yeah, it's a bit confusing because I was at uni. And then I got a placement at Access Sport as a community development officer. I was on our Bristol team. That was kind of end of 2020 into 21. So a lot of it was working from home because of COVID, but it was still a brilliant placement. Well, I'm back at Access Sport now. So yeah, clearly they couldn't keep me away too long because I absolutely loved it. So yeah, I did my placement. So I was there for a year at Access Sport. Went back to uni final year, and then went straight into sported as a regional support officer on the London and East of England team, which was really good. They do a bit more light touch work than we do at Access Sport. I think both have their place. Like the sport is really great at building like club capacity and stuff. So I do light touch support in terms of calling clubs and asking if they need any support. It might be their marketing, it might be their governance side of things, and then we maybe provide resources, or there's sport would have like loads of volunteers that they with expertise in those areas that we could provide them with. So I was kind of administrating that basically. But I really I loved it at Sported, and I loved it at Access Sport as well. So a job became available at Access Sport. So yeah, I'm now back as community coordinator, and I kind of wanted to do that more intensive club support side of things,
Yeah.
where I was working closely with less clubs, but working more closely with them, and really developing those clubs into inclusive settings. Yeah.
And what kind of role does the community coordinator have? Is it those kind of touch points with Access Sport that you're just more heavily involved in now, or what other aspects are there involved in that?
Yeah, so as community coordinator, my main part of my job is club development.
Okay.
So working with community clubs and organisations to train, equip, and support them. And so we have disability inclusion training we can provide for them,
Yeah.
which kind of increases their disability awareness and competence in how to adapt sessions to be inclusive. And yeah, we provide support with like promotion. So yeah, my main role is to make sure that those club sessions are inclusive and meaningful and sustainable. There's also the partnership networking side of things. So I support our senior development manager on that side of things in terms of Access Sports connections within London. So at the moment, we mainly work in Southeast London. And building those networks is really important because London is such a vast space. As different boroughs, there's different networks in each borough. So I support that work in connecting with different schools, organisations, councils, and bringing them all together to work collaboratively. And events as well is another side of my work. So we provide multi-sports festivals quite often throughout the year, which are really great events for young people and their families to try lots of different sports and activities. And then the idea is that hopefully they've tried those activities for free, and then hopefully they can continue doing them within the clubs.
Yeah, that's great. So just touching on the fact where you said you try and make this inclusive environment with the events that you're organising and things. As I mentioned at the start of the podcast, my kind of topic at the moment that I'm doing with Pulse Social is on disability in sport. So I just got a few questions for you in terms of making these events accessible for people with disabilities. What are the main challenges and barriers faced by people with disabilities when accessing sports, and how do you go about catering for these?
Yeah. So there's a lot of challenges that excluding disabled young people from sport. I don't know whether you've heard of the social medical model of disability before. I'll do a brief overview. Is that the medical model is quite outdated, and it kind of puts their impairment as an individual's impairment and themselves as kind of the reason for someone being disabled. That they would say they're confined to a wheelchair, for example, or they can't walk or can't see, therefore they can't be included, which is clearly an outdated version. So the outdated way of looking at the world. So the social model of disability was developed to contradict that and improve that, and kind of put society under the microscope, I suppose. And it said the social model of disability says that it's the way that society is run that is oppressing disabled people. So rather than saying that someone's confined to a wheelchair, it might say that it's the facilities or lack of inclusive and accessible facilities that is disabling that person, or rather than saying someone can't hear, it's the lack of different ways of communicating that society doesn't have. Or so the medical model would say that someone can't work because of their impairment, whereas the social model is saying that it's the lack of opportunities that are given or discrimination that's disabling them. And that transitions into sport as well. So I think disabled people are twice as likely to be inactive as non-disabled people. And that's not because they don't want to be more active, but rather there's that lack of opportunities and vision for disabled people in the communities. And yeah, there's this lack of opportunities is the main barrier. But there's other barriers include lack of accessible provision. So this includes like accessibility of venues, as I mentioned, accessible public transport, insufficient disabled parking bays for participants, maybe. lack of training, awareness, and experience of coaches. So the coaches might not have enough knowledge and experience with working with deaf and disabled young people. The equipment might not be accessible, or they haven't adapted the games to suit each individual's needs. Might be previous negative experience. So families might have had negative experiences when participating in the community, whether that's children not being included in PE sessions, which can be quite common, unfortunately, or it could be a coach or a club saying that they can't accommodate for that child, or I've had other comments from other families that have created that negative experience. So then once you've had that negative experience, it's hard to, especially as a young child or a teenager, it's hard to get back into sport and get that positive association. Kind of like my involvement with 11-a-side, like I had negative associations of it. You might have really positive associations of it. For me, it's quite hard to go back into that 11-a-side side of things because I've had that negative experience.
Of course.
Other things excluding might be clubs and groups not promoting in the right areas. So yeah, we need to make sure that we're reaching our target audience. So focusing on promotion with parent carer groups, in hospitals with healthcare teams, specialist schools as well, and also having that variety of promotion in spaces with the right audience is so important. Cost as well can be a major factor. Sorry, I'm going on here, but
No, it's so important.
There's
This
lots
is
of
what I'm
lots of
covering at the moment.
I did note down a couple others. There's also the social exclusion of disabled people throughout society, which has a major impact on the exclusion of disabled people in sports. I think one stat is that more than 7 out of 10 disabled children, say they feel lonely. So it's obviously a quite worryingly high and sad statistic that highlights that exclusion of disabled people in society. So again, that kind of comes down to those barriers: lack of opportunities, lack of transport, like accessible transport, financial costs, and then there's also the attitudes and awareness of non-disabled people as well. And note down a couple of stats beforehand to highlight that was the research from SENSE, who are a disability organisation, showed that 49% of non-disabled people feel that they don't have anything in common with disabled people, and only 26% admit to engaging in conversation with a disabled person, which seems crazy. So yeah, it's pretty strikingly high, and goes to show how disabled children would feel lonely. So yeah, statistics like that really show like the importance of the work that of like Access Sport are doing, because we know the social benefits of community sport as well as the physical, mental benefits. So yeah, as a result, two of our outcomes are based on community engagement and sense of belonging for young people and their families we support. To kind of rebalance that exclusion and that imbalance in society and sport. So that was a very long answer, but
no, I got it. I think you're right in the fact that it's this kind of prehistoric perspective on disability sports that needs to be changed, and that kind of blossoms itself or manifests into all these different issues, like lack of funding, lack of opportunities. And if you can maybe, as Access Sport is trying to do, change these perceptions at the heart and increase the opportunities for disabled people to get involved in sports, and then hopefully it will go a long way into making a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely.
You mentioned earlier about I think you mentioned the judo that you're doing. Have you got any more of these kind of initiatives or sports things, events that you've organized that are disability inclusive, and can you give some examples of those and explain how they are inclusive?
Yeah, so firstly, we've partnered with you guys at Pulse Social to deliver some great multi-sport sessions in Bromley. So that's supported by Bromley FC as well. They provided a coach to support those sessions. And Jenny from Pulse Social as well has been great. Really developed as a coach during those sessions. Can see how she's developed herself as a coach to make them more inclusive. And yeah, it's about meeting the needs of everyone in that session, making sure that you can adapt your sessions. And if you've got a sport like judo, for example, let's say what that sport is to you, maybe you don't necessarily have to stick to exactly what that sport is in order to adapt. So what judo might look like to you might look different to another person or a group of young people who may not have the mobility, for example, to do everything that you would normally do in your judo session. Go back to pulse. Other stuff that's really increased the inclusivity is providing accessible equipment, like sensory equipment, that's really helped engage some of those young people that were kind of a bit less engaged to start off with. Having that sensory equipment there often really helps neurodivergent young people engage in the sessions. We've also supported a karate session, which has been great, with a volunteer in Southwark. Yeah, quite a few different examples. Yeah, I'd say mainly it's about just adapting. Makes it sound really easy, but it can be challenging sometimes if you've got a group of say 5 to 10 young people all with varying needs and ability levels, and it can be challenging. But once you've got that confidence, yeah, you can adapt any sport to be inclusive. Absolutely.
Yeah, we had I had Olu on a podcast. Olu's working with Pulse at the moment on the Bromley project as well. And she was speaking a bit of the challenges and also the benefits that she's got out of it, not necessarily as a participant, but as an organizer. In terms of the participants involved in, maybe the judo or the karate sessions or the Bromley project, what kind of benefits are you seeing in the individuals who are playing sports?
I mean, there's so many benefits. I think having that sense of belonging is a massive one. And there's also a lot of firsts at our sessions that we find. I was literally just typing up a quote actually from an event that we had on Saturday, where a young person kicked a football for the first time, and then played tennis for the first time ever. And the parents said that they've tried hard for ages to for their young, I think it's 5-year-old kid they had to be able to get involved in tennis and football, and he's never been able to kick a football before. He just wasn't engaging with it. And they went to this inclusive session on Saturday, inclusive event in Thamesmead, and he kicked a football for the first time, which to most people sounds like something small, but that is a massive achievement for that young person. And I think that's something that we always try to put across is success is different for everyone, looks different for everyone. That kicking a football for the first time is a massive achievement for that young person. It might be stepping foot into the hall might be a big achievement if the young person's really anxious. So having those first is so important for everyone. And it's only with these opportunities that they get those firsts. Other benefits is the physical side, the fine side of things, social side of things. Disabled young people are often excluded in school and like away from the main class and not included in PE sessions often. So connecting with other young people and also their families as well. We encourage siblings to come along and parents to get involved. So providing that space where you can participate alongside your peers and your families is massively important for them.
And I think also you say like recognizing these little achievements, something that maybe most people might even be a PE teacher in a school would take for granted, someone kicking a ball or entering the hall. But if you're recognizing that as someone's achievement, then that's going to only make them feel better about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a massive part of it. It's the
mental
side.
You need to celebrate those wins, absolutely.
Yeah, because it's all relative for different people. How do you think? Obviously, you said you're only 24, but you've got a pretty large amount of experience in the sporting field, as I said. But how do you think that disability sports has evolved in the short time that you've been, working in the field?
I'd say
Do you think there's
I feel
growing
like it's
opportunities?
Yeah, I feel like it's changed. I feel like it's changed quite a lot from what I've seen. There's more of those opportunities than there's improvements that's been made in the last 5, 10, 15 years ago. But yeah, it's still a long way to go, but it's definitely changing and improving. I think organizations are starting to think about inclusivity more actively, which is a good sign and it's good progress. But yeah, there's a long way to go in terms of really making sure inclusivity is embedded, and inclusivity is the norm throughout community sport and its access sports mission, to be influential in that. So I think we've also seen massive improvements in representation of disabled people in sport as well, especially at elite level over the last 10 years. I think the 2012 games had a really significant positive impact on that, elevating the platform and audience of disabled sport to a wide audience. So I think the impact of that has gradually been seen at grassroots. Having those role models to look up to is so important, and it breaks down that barrier. If people say if you can't see it, then it's only natural that you can't. You'll think that you can't be it. So having that representation at elite level of sport across all areas of society as well is vital to ensuring those equal opportunities. So yeah, I think that has had an impact on community sport as well.
Yeah, I think you're right in saying the Paralympics is almost like a catalyst in 2012, but even since, people tuning in every 4 years, every 2 years for the different championships. But even just a couple of weeks ago at Wimbledon, I saw that wheelchair tennis had more coverage on TV than I've noticed before, and I think that's so important. My next question was going to be for you, that what role do you think that these sports events and competitions play in breaking down barriers for people with disabilities? Is it just, do you think that role model kind of believing that you can do it?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, like you think back to before 2012, and there just wasn't disability sport on TV. So firstly, people aren't aware of it, and people aren't aware that it's amazing as well. Like, there's so many amazing athletes at elite level, and yeah, I think that is the main. I'd say the main benefit of that representation at elite level as well, people's exposure to it, because it really does filter down across society into grassroots, and yeah, it kind of negates that stigma of disability sport, I guess.
Yeah. Right, just heading into my final question then for you, Joe, if that's all right. What are your future goals? I always ask at the end of my podcast what people's future goals are, but what are your future goals personally, and what are the future goals of Access Sport in terms of making, lasting positive changes to the lives of all participants, not necessarily just disabled, but all participants, and what needs to be done going forwards?
Yeah, my personal goals, I'm really loving what I'm doing at the moment, so I think continuing that, and yeah, hopefully in terms of my career, I'd say progressing through Access Sport. I love it here, and
Yeah.
I'm really having a positive impact on people's lives. I think I want to continue going down to those inclusive sessions to kind of build my own knowledge and experience of how to adapt, and then I can, I'd help to provide the disability inclusion training that we provide. And I feel going down, you can do all the training in the world, but going down to those sessions and seeing how coaches adapt and picking those things up from parents and participants and coaches, is only going to develop you even further. So I think from a personal level, I think that's what I want to pick up, so then I can pass it on through our training and to our future clubs as well, and also for myself, so I can learn how to be more inclusive, because hopefully I've got a good idea of how to provide and develop inclusive sessions, but there's always improvement to be made, and there's always an evolving landscape as well. So yeah, I think that's from a personal level. I think from Access Sport, I think we want to so going forward, we want to expand the work we're doing. Our model is a proven and successful model, which has had significant impact and change to inclusivity in spaces and places and sports we've worked in. So yeah, expanding that work is something we're really passionate about, and like I said, our aim is to make inclusion a norm through community sport in the UK, which is stated in our new Stand for Inclusion growth strategy. And yeah, what needs to be done to achieve that? I'd say it takes commitment and collaboration, both from a macro NGB government level, where access sport are very much involved in the wider system change, right down to the hyper-local community level, where our work continues to have a positive impact on communities and people, which we hope will continue to expand and reach more people and achieve that goal of inclusivity becoming a norm in community sport.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Joe, today. I think, as you said, with your personal goal there of just continuing to educate yourself on inclusivity and how you can be more inclusive, should be just not necessarily just a goal for yourself, but for everyone, as you say. So hopefully by doing this podcast, we can educate a few more people onto disability access and initiatives and the great work done by Access Sport. So yeah, I think you only have to go on Access Sports website to see the work that you're doing at the moment. I think it says 7,000. I've got 7,000 lives changed at the moment. So hopefully, if I speak to you in the future at some point, Joe, maybe I'll be working in the sport field as well. That number will be a bit higher.
Absolutely, and we'd love to have you. You're doing amazing work at Pulse Social as well, both yourself personally and Pulse Social as a whole. It's a really great organisation, and yeah, I've loved working with you guys, and yeah, appreciate you inviting me on. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. Thanks, and good luck for the future.
You too. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.